Let's dip into a little bit of Westwood prehistory. Before becoming Westwood Studios, the developer of original games, the company was a small outsourcing operation for companies like Epix and SSI, working to port 8-bit titles like Road War 2000 and the Temple of Apshai to 16-bit systems. As it expanded, Westwood's Associates, as it was then known, became able to design their own titles, developing a number of licensed games including the Crescent Hawk's Revenge, an RTS set in the Battletech universe, and the first two Eye of the Beholder games. In 1992, the company was renamed Westwood Studios and sold to Virgin Interactive, where they promptly established themselves as a company to watch with the release of Dune 2. But this was not their only game for Virgin before the big hit of Command & Conquer came along in 1995. They were also able to release a series of adventure games called The Legend of Kyrandia, and a spiritual successor to their Dungeons & Dragons RPGs, Lands of Lore, The Throne of Chaos. Like the Eye of the Beholder games, Lands of Lore is a fantasy role-playing game played from a first-person perspective. The player must explore mazes with their party of heroes, fighting monsters, avoiding traps and solving puzzles. However, unlike other famous first-person RPGs such as the Gold Box series or the original Phantasy Star, combat and exploration in Lands of Lore occurs in real time. Stand still in a dungeon long enough and it's quite likely that an enemy will come wandering around the corner. Even so, you couldn't really call this an action game, since all of your abilities are affected by cooldown timers that keep battles to an almost turn-based pace. The game allows you to choose between 4 heroes, each specialising in a different field, although the canonical hero is a Hewline or Cabman called Kieran. You are tasked with protecting Gladstone Keep from the evil witch Scotia, who has recently uncovered a magical ring which allows her to take on any form she pleases. King Richard tasks you with travelling south to find the Ruby of Truth in order to uncover Scotia's disguise, but this is only the beginning of your adventures which take you all over the lands. Despite its age, Lands of Lore features a few ideas that have since become used a lot in more modern games, particularly the Elder Scrolls series. Leveling up occurs automatically through the repeated use of a skill, so the more you use a character to fight, cast spells or pick locks, the better their fighter, mage and rogue abilities will become. Early on, you're also given a very useful magic atlas that fills out the maps of the areas as you explore them, which is a real boon considering how easy it would be to become disoriented in the massive dungeons. As with Nox, the Lands is not just your typical generic swords and sorcery setting. Yes, there are orcs, but there are also cat people, the four-armed thomgogs, the swamp-dwelling Gorka, and a number of other unusual creatures that you really aren't likely to have seen anywhere else. Being an old game, it's not surprising that the environments tend to look a bit samey, but overall the hand-drawn graphics are pleasing, with nice big splotches of blood coming out of monsters when you score a hit. And the game will occasionally throw some fancy graphical effects your way as well. The music, on the other hand, isn't my favourite part of the game, but the CD-ROM version did have a better soundtrack and even spoken dialogue featuring Patrick Stewart. And being an old game, one could expect it to be pretty tough. Sure enough, there is a definite initial barrier in difficulty as you begin to explore the giant lizard-inhabited forests of the Southland. Once you get over that though, the game isn't too punishing. You can save anywhere you like, and any character can use the basic healing spell to resurrect fallen teammates. Throw in the standard RPG rest button and it's relatively easy to get your party back on its feet after a tough battle, so long as you can avoid being attacked in your sleep, that is. The game spawned 2 sequels, but the series hasn't seen a new release in over 10 years, which is a real shame considering how few first-person RPGs there are these days. So, is Lands of Lore worth playing today? I'd say it's definitely worth trying, as it can be found on any good abandonware site these days. The mechanics are easy to pick up, and the game is much more forgiving than some of its predecessors, complete with clever puzzles and an interesting world to explore. Thumbs up.